Hey peeps, Dee here. Welcome to my channel, welcome to my studio, welcome to this little tutorial. You know, it feels like spring to me, and after a long, hard, cold winter, it's time to do leaves and flowers. So today's class is this 6-petaled daisy. Yeah, originally I thought I'd make this, but it turned into this, and I'm ever so glad it did because it turned into these beads. Yeah, I like them a lot. So that's what we're doing in class. Now, you have questions about the leaves, maybe? And if you're new to my channel, you wouldn't know this, but this is also a tutorial that you can watch. I will put the link in the description. So if you want to make these leaves, and you want to make this flower, and you want to make these beads, you have all the information you need. Having said that, I think it's time for us to start. We got some flowers and beads to make. Most of us are really tired. We're really tired. Okay, my peeps, let us take a look at the finished flower. Now this I made a very long time ago. The center is a jelly roll, balanced jelly roll, and the petals of this particular flower are actually Skinner blend from yellow to a pale yellow. Now this time I'm going to do yellow to white, okay? Not yellow to a pale yellow, yellow to white. Now this cane is packed. The clay around the flower is what we would call the packing with translucent clay. And that's an option for you. I am going to pack with black clay. But the outline of the flower is black, so I'm going to wrap the flower again in the gold. Then pack it in black. Okay? because if I don't do that, it'll just be, there won't be any defined black around the petals. Yeah, just the black packing. And I think I would like to have the shape of the petal set off a little better. And that's why I'll use the gold to separate the two blacks, the black outline and the black packing. So let me condition my clay. I have approximately 2 ounces of white and 2 ounces of yellow. And here we go. So let me just condition it all up and I'll be back. We're going to start by making our balanced jelly roll. Okay, my peeps. I have conditioned 1 block of black, 1 block of yellow, and what is, I think, equivalent to 1 block of white. Now the white feels great. It's supple, it's nice. This is rolled through the thickest setting of the pasta machine. A little bit stiffer, I can tell. Yeah, this one is more like the white. That means I'm going to soften this. How am I going to soften it? Of course, conditioning bar. Now, if you don't have conditioning bar, you can also use liquid clay. Yeah, you could do that. Now, that might be a little extreme. That's kind of a lot. I think that we're going to start with that. Now, sometimes people say, well, how much do you use? There is no answer because it depends on how hard your clay is. And seeing as how I am not sitting with you in your studio, I can't tell you. All I know is that I would start for my clay, which is a bit stiff, with that much. No, that might even be too much. Let's start with that. So you're going to work your way up to the feel you want, okay? Don't take like 2 ounces and throw it in, or you'll have clay soup. Okay, so let me work this in, and then I'll be back. The way I work it is just roll it through the pasta machine, like so. Fold and roll, until I've worked it all the way through. Yeah, okay, I worked it in, and you know what? I need a little bit more, minus this lint. Okay, I'm going to work that in. I'll be back. Now you may be thinking, that is such a pain. Why can't I use just the clay? Why is she doing that? Why didn't she just use the clay she has? Okay, so there's a simple answer. I will have more usable cane if I manage to make the colors in the cane the same feel and consistency, because through the reduction process, it's going to be more even. You know, if you took a rock and you wrapped it in marshmallow fluff and you started squeezing on the whole thing, what would happen? The marshmallow fluff would just go out and you would end up with a rock. Now that is an extreme example, but it is kind of what happens because the stiffer clay isn't going to move like the soft one. Yeah. The stiffer clay is the rock, and the softer clay is the marshmallow fluff. Okay, let me work this in. All right, my peeps, so these are reasonably close now in terms of feel. So before we make our jelly roll, let's just set up our Skinner blend. Now, I'm not going to make a humongous cane. I'm not going to make a humongous cane. I'm going to try not to make a humongous cane. So it's just your conventional Skinner blend setup that I always do, just like I just did. Okay. So I'm cutting my right angle triangles together because it's faster. Separate them. Put them back together. See that? That's wrong. What does that look like? Kind of looks like a kite, right? Yeah, you don't want a kite. You want it to look like this. A nice rectangle or square. Yeah. All right. Now this is what we're going to use to make our jelly roll. Okay, so I'm just going to set this aside. We're going to be Skinner blending that in a moment, but now we're going to move on to our balanced jelly roll. So let me just roll this into a sheet. Actually, I'm cutting. I'll be back. Okay, so here are my two colors for my balanced jelly roll. This is all the black I have left. I think I'm going to need more, but I'm not going to make a huge cane here. Yeah, I'm really, honestly, I'm not. And truth be told, if I wasn't doing this with you at this moment in time, I would be reaching into a box of canes I already have. Yeah, I wouldn't be making a new one because I have tons and tons and tons of canes and jelly roll canes and bullseye canes and all kinds of canes like that. All right, so let us take this and make our balanced jelly roll. Now, these two sheets have been rolled through the thickest setting of my pasta machine. So I'm going to take this edge and roll it back through the thickest setting of my pasta machine, making it half the thickness, making each color half the thickness. Now, I think that I would like more revolutions in my jelly roll, which means I have to thin this sheet. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to roll it through setting number 2. My atlas starts at 0. So I'm just going to make it longer like this. See? Now, what I want is I want the black on the outside. So I am going to fold the white side back on itself like that. Okay. If I wanted the white on the outside, I would be folding the black to the black. I want the black on the outside, so I'm folding the white to the white. Now let's just take a blade, make a nice angled cut like this. Now from the fold, we're going to roll to the cut. Sometimes that happens. You may get a little crack there. It's not a huge deal in a cane like this, to be honest with you, and especially since once we get this cane made and in the finished flower, by the time it gets used, this detail is very small. The jelly roll is tiny, and so a slight crack when you're rolling it up isn't going to make any difference at all. No one will notice. As a matter of fact, you'll know it's there and you won't be able to see it. Okay, so here is our balanced jelly roll. Ta-ta! And I call it a balanced jelly roll because in the center, the black and the white are totally balanced and evenly weighted. Okay, set that aside. Now we have to do our Skinner blend. We're going to start actually making our flower petals. That is the next step. Okay, my peeps, let's do a Skinner blend. First time 2 colors touch the rollers. Going back to setting 0. Boom. Ta-ta. Now, every time after, yellow on yellow, in this case, white on white. You look at the side, all you see is white on this side, all you see is yellow here. Place the fold on the rollers, roll through. Now you're going to continue doing that until you get a nice Skinner blend. All right. I'll be back when I have one. Could take 10 times, could take 15. I could get lazy and stop at 12, but I'll be back. All right, peeps, 16 times. That's what I did. Now, we are going to roll from yellow to white. Now, if we roll from yellow to white at this thickness, I'm just going to cut this to show you what happens. See how thick that is? Very thick. Very, very, very thick. What happens is you really see the revolutions. You see the wind See that? You can see. You can actually, you can absolutely see it. Now, is that terrible? No, it isn't. But I would rather not see that. So I'm going to place the yellow edge on the rollers, and I'm going to thin this out. Now let's start at 2. Make it thin. Ta-da. And I'm going to go all the way down to like 5. How's that? This is 4. So let's go down to 5. You know, there is quite the mess under my pasta machine. I am picking up all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to put this piece of paper underneath because the paper is cleaner than under my pasta machine. Heavens. Help me, help me. All right, here we go. Now, I'll tell you something. Now, some people may freak out about things like this. See, but I'll be honest with you. In all the time I've worked with clay, by the time this is in a cane and it is reduced out, it turns into maybe a speck. Maybe a speck. So I don't really worry about that. So I'm going to cut off all that yellow though, because I don't want quite this much yellow in the center. Judgment call. It's not like a matter of right or wrong here. Just for me, I find that to be more yellow than I need. All right, so let me just roll this up. Yada yada. Now, let's take a look at this. Oh, look at that. See, I told you my machine is just a mess down there. All right, so here is a situation where, you know, this mess I'll live with, but this is like not necessary. I'm cutting it off right there. Okay, and what I'm going to do is ultimately take this white and I'm going to add it in the final wrap. Okay, are we ready? Come on, dude. Come on. You know, maybe... All right, I am pausing for a moment to clean underneath my rollers. Oh, holy mackerel. Yeah, it's a good thing. It was not only dirty underneath my machine, but look at that. It's disgusting. Okay, so hopefully it's cleaner now. So this has been rolled through setting number 5. I don't think I have quite enough. So I'm going to grab some more white that happens to be hanging around. Help me. I used a little bit too much white. Well, let's see how far I get with what I've got left. Okay. Let's just see if I'm going to need to get more or if I can make it. You know, I think that's fine for a cane like this. For this particular cane, I think it's fine. All right. But it is rather long. It is long, all right. It's longer than it has to be. Oh, I just dropped that needle. Okay, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to plug it. I'm going to make it shorter. because, as you will shortly see, I'm going to have to stand it up and cut into it. And this is too long. I mean, I would have to cut all that. It's much easier if I can make this shorter, which I can. And it's not a problem with the pattern inside because all it is a Skinner blend bullseye. You wouldn't want to do this if you were working with a face cane or something. But for something like this, nothing's going to happen. So I'm going to make my life just a tiny bit easier. Oops. By shortening it at this point. I hope this is a good day in the studio. Sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. You know, okay, so here was my first mistake. I'm wearing chenille. I don't think that's really helping because I seem to see some little chenille flecks. This is going to be a chenille fuzzy cane. Let me push my sleeves back. That's got to help. Okay, but chenille's so warm. No, I'm cold. Okay. Phew. There we go. Now, I'm going to wrap this in black. How much black? It's going to be thin. Let's do 5. Doesn't have to be terribly thick. Just a nice fine outline. I mean, this is kind of a judgment call. If you want a thicker outline, then you will roll this black sheet through a thicker setting of your dear pasta machine. But if you want a thin line, well, then you're going to roll through 5 or 6 or 7. I don't know if there's any right here, right or wrong. There's just what you want. That's all. Okay. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Close it up. Now, I said I wanted to wrap the whole cane in gold. So, you know, I think I'm going to take the opportunity to wrap it right now. Now, what that means in terms of how the cane's going to look, it's not going to be identical to this, but there will be thin gold in between coming up around, and even gold in between, and then gold like this. So it will be everywhere you see black, there's going to be a thin gold outline. Now, I'm not going to make it 5. I'm going to make it thinner. So let's make it 7. Thin. Thinner, thinner, thinner. Could even make it 8, but I think we'll live with 7 for now. Okay. Are we ready to wrap? I think I made this a little bit too narrow, but we're going to live with it because I don't feel like re-rolling it, but I will stretch it as I wrap. Make it wide enough. I can do that. It'll just be the tiniest bit thinner. That's all. Ta-ta. Okay. Air bubble. Air bubble. That happens a lot when you're wrapping with clay that is very thin. You know, little air bubbles. Not going to be a huge issue though. All right, so now I'm standing this up. This is our basic petal. Okay, now we have to move on to petal formation. I'm going to cut here because this is getting a little long. When I get back, we're going to continue. Okay, peeps, I am back. Now, I did this cane in my book, see? And you can see that it's a little bit different. This one is not the same as this one. This one, the petals are more separated. There is clay between them. There's translucent between them. Now this one, the petals are butted up against each other. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong here. They're just a little bit different. Now, in terms of the way they're used, I will say this. I kind of like the separation. See this? See how these are separated here? It's not like a mass, just a mass of yellow and white with just outlines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with it this way. Okay, we're going to separate the petals out just a tiny bit, like this one too. The petals are separated. It's not just a mass of petals around a jelly roll. So to do that, what I'm going to do is wrap the cane again. And this time I will wrap it in black. Now, all right. I'm definitely going to need more black clay. Okay, so I am rolling this through like setting 4. So it's not as thin as this, as the gold. It'll be a little bit thicker. Now, here's the thing. If I want them to be very far apart, then of course I make this sheet thicker, right? So we're going to stick with setting 4. Let's see what happens. Oh, actually setting 5. Let's do 5. Wrap it in 5. I'm going to give myself a little bit more leeway so I don't have to stretch it so much. Okay, so let's just wrap it around. Okay, very good. Now, I'm going to stand it up, and I'm going to cut it this way and this way to make 4 quarters. Now, these 4 quarters are going to make 2 petals, 2 double petals. Okay, so is that this? I can't see because, oh yeah, okay, there we go. Like so. They don't have to be exactly the same because, haha, they're not going to be. Yeah, see, I'm a little off here, but not going to worry too much about it. So let's separate them. And you know what? I think I'll take the 2 that are opposite like this, and these will be our petals. Now, each one of these pieces is formed and shaped the same way, and that is put your 2 fingers on a flat side and start pushing the outside toward that point, toward the center point, okay? Like so. Now, you don't have to go all the way in. In other words, you don't have to make this black clay touch that point, especially on one side, you know, like so. Then flip it over and do the same thing, like this. Oops, I pushed a little bit too hard, like so. Okay, so on one side, I am going to try to make this go all the way to that point. Gonna do my best. Let's see how far we can get it down. Pretty good. Just keep trying to coax it down to the point, like so. If it doesn't get all the way down, I wouldn't worry about it too much. And let's just take a cut and see what it looks like, what we have done. So this is what it looks like at this point. Okay, so it kind of looks like, well, if I did this part, it would look sort of like a C. But you see where it ends here and goes. Now, that's because this next petal, I'm going to do the same thing. Push this down to more or less the middle. Because these two middle sides are going to meet like this, right? And then the two outside, where it goes almost to that center point, are the outsides of the petals. So the half, this, where it doesn't go all the way down, is the middle of the petal, and this, where it goes almost all the way down, is actually the outside. So let's pull this down just a little bit more. Okay. Now let's take our two sides and see. This is kind of rough, right? A little bit rough, but I will say I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters at all. So let us match up the black where it goes like that and push the petal together like so. Okay. Now, it might have been helpful for me to actually make them a little longer when they were separated. Let's see if I can do that. No, can't do it. So now I'm kind of stuck. I've got to make this longer when they're stuck together, and it definitely would have been easier when they were separate pieces. I haven't made this daisy in... Okay, so I wrote this book, The Art of Polymer Clay Millefiori Techniques, in 2009? So it's been a while. It's been a while. This cane is really old. I do many different things, so sometimes I forget the little stuff, and then I have to learn, and then I remember, oh yeah, oh yeah, okay, now I remember sort of. Okay, so that actually looks like a heart. So if you wanted a petal that looks like a heart like this, or it looks like bottom, a bottom, then you would do this. Now, you can extend this deeper into the petal if you want, of course. Maybe the next one will go a little bit deeper. Okay. So let's do this again, one more time. You're going to take and just push, push, push. Now that's split there. So that's a good example of what happens if you're not actually just pushing. I did not push as much as I kind of pulled that over, and so it cracked. I think it's going to be all right, but you don't want to do that. You don't want to do what I just did. Sometimes it happens. sometimes it happens. Okay, so I'm trying to be better, a better pusher than a puller. Okay, so let's see if I can get it all the way down or as close as I can. See, so I've got this split here. I honestly don't think it's going to matter in the finished cane. That is my hope. So let's make this longer. Elongate make this longer instead of short as this one was. This end is quite a bit smaller. It's going to happen. Sometimes it happens. You know, I mean, I don't think all petals in nature are exactly the same though, so. Okay, there's one. Now we're going to do the second one. You don't have to watch me, so I'm going to cut. I will finish this one in just the same way. Actually, was I working down here again? Let me make this one. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. It's sort of more or less the middle. Let's start pushing the other side. I was making pretty good progress to the point though, so let me see. To the middle. Now try to push this black clay all the way to the point. Well, as close as I can. All right. Something along those lines. Half and full. Now I want to thin it and make this longer. So I don't have to do it when it's all together. That looks a little sloppy. Just a bit sloppy. Okay, now let's try putting them together. So the half sides go together. They're not going to match exactly because they can't. And then bring the tips together like so. And we have made a petal. A second petal. Now I'm going to have to reduce these because we need to have them go around our jelly roll, right? And that jelly roll is very large, so I'm going to reduce that too. This is how I end up with so many extra jelly rolls. Yeah. So let us reduce this out. How many petals do I want? 8? 6? I don't know. So I'm going to reduce these out so that I get 2-inch sections. So that'll either be 12 inches for 6 petals. So this will be 6 and 6, or 8 inches for 8 petals, 8 inches, 8 inches. I'm going to go 6 because I don't have that much clay. So I'll be back. The reduction is just what I'm doing here, which is to kind of push on the sides a bit, maybe twist, pull, like so. The clay is nice and soft. It's very stretchy, so it's not so difficult to gently stretch. See, as you just kind of twist it and pull it out a bit, like so. And if you work slowly, you won't rip it in two. Okay, now let's see how many inches I have here. This is a 6-inch ruler, so I have a way to go. I will be back. Okay, my peeps, I've reduced these out to 6 inches each. We are going to have 6 petals, and we have to do one more thing, and that is fill that space up there between the petals. Okay, it's not critical, but but it's probably a good idea. You see, if I don't fill it up, it is possible that the petal turns into this. Now, is that terrible? I don't think so. It's just a different shape. So then you have a pointy petal instead of one that looks like, well, a heart or a bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to roll a very thin snake. I'm going to lay it right there between the 2 lobes of our petal. So I'll be back. Okay, so you see the snake, and I'm just going to lay it in between the 2 lobes like so. Oops. I'm going to try. My hands have a lot of clay on them right now. So you guys know, you get clay on your hands, and, well, clay wants to stick to you. It does. Okay, so that's good. I filled up the space I needed to. Now, let us now wrap around this guy. Okay. Obviously, too big. If I did this, I would need 1, 2, 3, 4, 10. Anyway, I don't really want that. So I'm going to reduce this down to what I think is what I want. Now, do I know exactly? Unfortunately, no, I don't. 1, 2, 3. It's got to be smaller. Remember, we only have 6 petals on this particular daisy. This is not an 8, 10, 12, 16, 24, 110 petal daisy. Because honestly, I don't have the energy to make that. It's still, I think, a little bit big. So I'm thinking. No, the reason is I go like this, 1, then another there, then there'll be the one there, and it's still, I think, a little bit big. All right, let's give this a go. Now, first amundo, I think I will cut these into 2-inch sections. That would be 1, 2, 2, and 3. Cut. And here are all my petalos. Okay. All right. Let's see what happens next, good people. All right, I'm committing. Or maybe I should be committed. Here we go. There we go. Extra. Now, I think what I will do, which I did not do before, I think I'm going to cut right here at the base. Just going to cut some off and try to make this nice and flat so that it will kind of sit nicely on the jelly roll. Now, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See, the jelly roll's still too big. It is. It happens. The center ends up, for me, being smaller than I anticipated. But, of course, once again, depends on the size of your petals, how many you have, all that good stuff. But I think I'm gonna make this size work. I am. All right. Now, by cutting off the base, I'm also making that process a little bit easier. Just a bit easier. Now, let us put this on the other side. And here you go. There's another guy there. Now, I have to decide, do I really want to do, because I may have to reduce the center again. That's an awful lot of space between those petals. And it's going to be repeated on this other side. See? Now I have, those petals are spaced pretty far apart. So what I'm going to do is what I said I didn't want to do, which is make this even smaller. I've got to push back my furry sleeves. Furry sleeves. Okay, quite a bit smaller. Quite a bit smaller. Let's see how we do now. Yeah, this is much better. Okay. Okie dokie. More. So the petals won't be quite so far apart. Won't be quite so much space between them. Closer. That's better. A lot better, as a matter of fact. Okay, let me cut the base of the remaining 2 petals. And slam them up against the jelly roll. People love making flowers, caning flowers. You know, I think that was one of the first things that really appealed to me personally about the whole process of caning, was just making flowers. And there are some people who they just make absolutely the most beautiful flowers. There is a woman in Israel who makes just absolutely the most gorgeous flowers. And I wish I could remember her name. All right. Now, as I said, I need a lot more black clay than this. So I am going to condition another package of clay, and hopefully that will do the trick. Most of it will be taken up in these spaces between. So I've got to do that. Let me think for a moment. Yeah, it's going to be the spaces in between. So let me condition up more black clay and I will be back. All right, my peeps, I did it. Conditioned my clay. Now, I'm going to make the biggest cylinder I can out of the clay I have. Okay, cylinder, think round. I may have to re-roll some of this clay. I bet I have to. I'll survive. I will survive. Okay. Now, that is one not good looking cylinder. But let's see. I am just going to make it the same height as my cane. Like so. I'm going to give this a couple more reps. Well, as many more as I can with my clay. We are now at about 2, and I would say 1/3 blocks of clay, blocks of black clay. Because remember, I started with a block and then some. I thought I was making a smaller cane. It's a real problem. It's a problem. Okay, let's wrap her some more. I just find it easier to pack canes from cylinders. I do. I definitely do. Okay. Here is what remains of my leftover black. Okay. All right. Oops. Help me, help me. Pushing back my fuzzy sweater. Should have worn an unfuzzy sweatshirt. Okay. Maybe chenille is not the ideal thing to wear with clay. Yeah, I think I'm right about that. All right, so you can see that the relative sizes, this is just a little bit smaller than that, which is fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut halfway like that. Then I'm going to move it over and I'm going to cut it in half again. Then I'm going to cut it in half again across this way. And it might actually be easier to cut them when they're more like this, right? Yeah, could be easier, like so. Got wedgies. Wedgies. So these wedgies are going to go in between like that. But the wedgies are a little bit thick. You know, the angle is a little bit too much. So I'm going to stand this up and I'm going to do my best to remove some of the material and make a thinner wedgie. Like so. So I'm going to try to straighten these out and to insert these black wedges in between the petals, like that. Okay, this one is a little bit thin. Gonna take the next one, try to cut some off, find a space that I think it's going to fit. Well, let's do this one, like so. All the way down like that. Really push that baby in there. Okay, so let us continue. Cut some off. Let's move this over just a tad. Scoot that in, and you know, you do have to check both sides. Check both sides, like so. And let's cut some off of here. See if this is a good one. And you know, some may be tighter or closer. Some of the petals might be closer together than others. It could happen. It could happen. So how are we doing? Can I just push you guys together a little tighter so this side has a little more room? I've got to get 3 more pieces in. Maybe this one. Maybe this one. Push this in just a tad. Move it over. Okay, come on. Okay, are you guys, am I leaving myself? I need to get 2 more wedges in. So let's open this up just a tiny bit. Squeeze them in. Open this up just a tad. See, now the center looks a little small, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. The center's looking a tiny bit small, but I think we'll still make it. And we're going to have to make it. Although I do have some remaining center. Okay, I can do it. Put us a larger center in. Let me just stretch it out a bit. It doesn't have to be this much larger. I want it to be long enough. Like so. Okay, that's better. So now I've given myself a little more room to work. I'm going to push that right up against it. That goes up against it. Okay, now we're making progress, my peeps. We are making progress. Now, this couple of these wedges are sticking a little far out, so let's just lop off the excess. Like so. And let's just take a look. See what we've got. Okay, now I'm just going to gently push everything together, like so, because the cane is at this point reasonably round. This might not be the best looking daisy cane I've ever made, but hey, because it does appear that there's quite, there's so much space in between. Ordinarily, that's not the way I build these canes. Let's take a cut. I hate cutting it off the end when it's this big. Let's take a cut off this end because it's not the good end. And see what we have. Okay, well, you know what? That's an acceptable kind of flower, I think, for my purposes. That is an awful lot of black in between, though. I gotta admit it. Awful lot. Now, how would I alter that? How would I change that? Short of having to make another whole petal. Because that is where I am at this point with this cane, is having to make another petal. I should have had 8 petals. What was I thinking? You know, sometimes it just happens. Okay, well, let us proceed and see what we have. Whether I have to start over again. So I'm going to reduce this down a bit. Okay, and we'll see. I'm just going to start squeezing it. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Okay, here you go. Be a cute little tiny flower, maybe. A teensy flower. Just try not to let the center just suck back in. See it sucking in on this side and not the other. Okay, so let me work on this. I'm just going to reduce it out and I'll be back. Okay, so you know what I'm going to do? This end really sucked back in on itself. So let's just cut this in half and see what we have at this point as a big cane. That's not too bad. That's not bad. It's not, you know, I don't know if it's as good. I don't know. They're just different, okay? So let me take this side, which is actually this side, which is the bad side. I'm going to reduce this even further and make it small and see what we have, because we're going to make some beads with these flowers and some leaves from another class. Okay, not even worrying about the waist. So let me just stretch this out because I want it kind of tiny. I want these small. All right. Let's take a look here. Okay, that is fine. Look at that. It's just a tiny little yellow flower with 6 leaves. So it didn't look so great here in the big size, but I like it in the small size. And I think it's going to be fine when we start pairing it with some of the leaves that we made in a previous tutorial. Yeah, it's sweet. Very sweet. Okay, so I think this is the size we're going to work with. We're going to be making some flower beads. Okay, peeps, so I quickly made a bead using the daisy, the 6-petal daisy, and a couple of little leaves. Now, these 2 leaves are in another class. I will put a link to the class. They start with 1 single element, and from 1 element you make 2 leaves. Now, if you have your own leaves, you certainly don't have to make these leaves, but I really like them. So I'm going to show you something because, of course, you start by making big, and look at how teeny they end up being. Yeah, because for beads like this, you're going to need tiny ones, teeny leaves. All right, so this is the way I reduce a lot. You got the big one here, you got a little teeny one on this end. So I'll show you how you go from this size to this size. Let's just reduce this side. Actually, do I want to do this one? I do. I think I want to do this one because this is all I have, the tiny size in this particular leaf. So you see the difference between the 2 leaves. So let's make this one small. Now, I'll be reducing in this shape. Yeah, this shape, which is more difficult than reducing round, reducing square, even reducing triangles. So this just requires that you start pushing and applying pressure to the whole form, right? So there's a lot more sort of directed pressure applied to the cane than just taking a clay and squeezing and pulling in that way. You're going to have to just be patient and apply your pressure to the place where it is required. Okay, so it started out big, and now look at how much smaller it is just by pushing like that. So of course, if I wanted to reduce this, I would be pushing like this on the big one. And eventually I might have to do that if I need the leaf in a smaller size. Now, once you get your cane soft throughout, then you can start pulling. But you have to be very careful. If it's at all cold and dry inside, it'll just crack. You'll pull on it and it will just split. So you're going to have to do this kind of thing and this kind of thing, just gently twisting to make sure that the leaf or the clay throughout the length is soft and supple and stretchy. It's the stretchiness. Okay, so now you see how what was like this is now just uniformly small. Okay, good deal. So now I'm set. I've got my 2 reduced small leaves, and I have my reduced flower. Now, I may need to reduce a little bit more of the flower, make a slightly smaller size, so I will just start by applying pressure to the outside and just gently twisting and pulling. Like so. Now let me move these over twist and pull. Once again, make sure that your cane is good and soft throughout so that it will stretch and not break. Twist and pull. And if you can, I think you'll find that twisting and pulling is much easier and you get a more even reduction than even rolling like that. Okay. All right, let's see what we have. Okay, so now we have a tinier flower that can be used with the big one. All right. Now the next thing I'm going to do, you don't have to watch me, is I'm going to take all of this. This is my scrap clay. This is all the scrap clay from making the flower. And I'm going to roll it through the pasta machine until it's a uniform color. And then we'll be ready to make the core for our beads. Okay, peeps, here's my scrap clay. I'm just going to roll, it's kind of a nice green. Yeah, I mean, this I could use in a leaf, but I'm sacrificing it. Okay, so here we go. Here's my pretty green scrap. Pretty green scrap. You know, the ugly scrap is that sort of ashy purple, for me anyway. But this is kind of a nice green that would go well in, you know, a leaf. I'm sacrificing. All right, so I'm going to take this black clay that I've rolled through setting 4. Now, is it important that it's setting 4? You know, I just kind of stopped at 4. I'm not worried about reducing it so much that the green shows through the black. And it's black because our beads are going to be basically black with leaves and flowers on them. Now, let's talk about it. Let's say you wanted to make beads that were white as the backgrounds instead of black. Well, one of the problems I could see or foresee is the amount of black I use to pack. That becomes a little problematic because that black in between each petal then becomes very dominant and very visible. Now, you can cover that up with, let's say, a leaf, right? Just insert a leaf there and cover up that black. But nonetheless, I think it would be a lot more trouble to do that. So if you wanted to make beads that were, let's say, white in the background, then perhaps you would pack this with white or translucent. You could pack it with translucent as well. I wanted to do black because I like the outlines and because, let me show you another one I made. This is made with a different flower in the members classroom, and these leaves were made in the members classroom as well. Now, one of the things I like about the black outline, especially working on black, is the way this looks. You see that black around? Now, it may be a little irregular, but I really like it. I like the way that black looks that I pack the cane with. This is a bit of a different situation. Now, this is a bead that I made, black bead, and you can see what I mean. The black here just blends into the background, right? But you can imagine what that would look like if this bead were white. So, although it can be done, it just, I think, requires a little more attention from you. From you. Yes, absolutely. So, let's just reduce this down. Beads, 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 beads. Now, what we're going to do is kind of make a speed bead in terms of the embellishment and decoration on the surface. We are going to roll this out. We're going to apply our cane slices to this rod. Then we're going to cut, and then we're going to close. Okay? So the first thing you want to do is kind of roll this out to about the diameter of the bead you want. So that ultimately all you'll be doing is closing the ends to conceal the scrap inside and then rolling into a ball. And this way too, because we're not going to be reducing this further, the pattern will stay, the flowers and the leaves will stay pretty much the size we lay down. All right, so let's stop here. Be a little bit smaller, I think, than that one. I'm going to cut off the end until I get to a fairly good place. See that I have to cut back to where there is pretty much clay all around because this rolled up, it's a smaller bead. All right, let me scoot forward because now it's time to decorate. All right, so the first thing I want to do is take the largish pieces that I've got. Like this is a largish one. Largish. Largish. This is very large. It's too large. I'm not going to use it. But this is probably, it's a medium size. So let's just lay down some of these slices first. Okay. I'm going to turn this around. Actually, I think I'll start hacking at it from this side. Let me do this. Because it's a little bit easier for me to lay down the slices if the stem, where the stem ends, is on this side. I don't know why, but it is. So I will continue and perhaps lay them down in clusters of 3. Not a rule or anything, but why not? Like so. And let me continue through the length of the, I'll put the center one down first and then put these down. And if you don't cut a complete one, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Like so. All right. So I'm just going to keep working on this and then I will be back. Okay, peeps, so I got them on, and it's pretty much random placement of these things. So I'm just going to try to roll them in a bit. Then we'll put the flowers on. Then we're going to finish by filling out with some of these tiny leaves in spots that we need some coverage. Yeah. And I did go in both directions. I kind of went this way, but I also put some that are pointing in the other direction. This is sort of laying down your leafy foundation. It's not sort of, that's what it is. It's not sort of, that's basically what it is. Okay, now let's take the larger of our 2 leaves. Our 2 flowers. The lady can't tell the difference between a flower and a leaf. I'm going to cut the first one off. And now I'm just going to start cutting these guys, kind of putting them down Once again, if you don't get complete ones, I really wouldn't worry too much about it. I actually find that sometimes just parts of flowers are as interesting. All right. Now they start to get a little squashed. I like that. I like it when the flowers start squashing a bit. They're not perfectly round, they're slightly flattened. I think they're more interesting actually when they're not perfectly round. I do. Oh, here's a part. There's a part. Put a part there. Okay. Now, if you see any blank spots, like any spots that are really screaming for flowers, well, you know what to do. You cut a flower and you plop it in the space. All right, so let's roll these in. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is go over the whole thing and put these tiny ones in certain spots. Okay, so let me roll these in. It's still pretty lumpy, so I have quite a bit more rolling to do, so I'll be back. All right, my peeps, I did more or less roll it in, but I think we can move ahead. We can forge ahead with the smaller flowers. Okay, now you're just going to pick your spots, and you're going to lay down this smaller, tinier flower. Okay, you just sprinkle them throughout places where you think it's appropriate. I think you can tell. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the exact spot. Yeah, I don't. Maybe I should. All right, I see a couple more spots I want to fill up. Maybe that guy. Up there. Just where you think they belong. This is by no means the end of your flower arranging. Okay. Oop. Maybe right there. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut them. And I'm going to use my marks. All right. Very good. So these beads aren't going to be very large. That is the 20 millimeter side. So I cut here and here and here. . think that's about it. Okay, so let us close the ends. Do the usual pinching down and pulling. Pulling the sides up like so. Like that. Then roll into a ball. Now after you finish rolling, then you can examine the bead and see where it needs anything. And this is where the tinier leaves will come in. Now there's the end, so that's where the hole is going to be, the bead hole. So let's just make a bead hole, push it straight down, and enter through the other side. So there is a bead, just like that. But it needs a little attention, I think. Probably needs a few little leaves. So let's start adding some little details. Any place you think you need something. I'm going to take it off because it's kind of hard. I keep moving. Like that was a good place for that leaf. So you're just going to address any needs you think your bead might have. The pattern is missing something, or you want to add maybe another little flower. But working in first with the cylinder allows you just to establish your sort of a foundation for your bead, and then you refine it this way. Like so. And you, of course, add as much or as little as you wish. I really like these little floral beads, though. They're very sweet. They're not difficult to make, and they are quite sweet. Okay, I think I need sort of a piece like right there. All right, I think I'm through with this guy. So at that point, you're just going to restore the hole and move on to the next one. Yeah, these are really sweet. Now, of course, you can take another approach. Now, the other approach would be to start with a black bead and then at every turn make these decisions. Like, where are you going to put the leaves exactly? Where are you going to put the flowers exactly? This is just a way of sort of randomly creating a floral pattern on a bead. So it's up to you. So let me finish with these and then I'll have a string of beads to show you. Okay, so my beads are ready to be cured. One last thing you want to do, make sure you have holes in them. It's really sad. It's so sad when you bake a bead and there's no hole. Oh my goodness. Okay, and the act of rolling makes the holes smaller. So before you pop them in the oven, just make sure you have a hole that you can thread through. Save yourself a lot of grief and aggravation. All right, so now I'm just going to plop these in baking soda. All I do is I have a bed of baking soda and I put the beads in and I'm going to pop them in the oven and cure them. Okay, peeps, here we are at the end of class. This is what I have left of gold. I started out with about a quarter of a package, I think. This is what I have left of white. It's not really that white anymore, but... And I started out with one package. This is what I have left of black. Surprising, huh? I don't think this is a full package. I'd have to weigh it, but it's, yeah, I have leftover black. And here's what I have left over of my yellow. Okay, so if you want to know how to make these leaves, I'm putting the link in the description. And you can watch it and make these leaves. Now, this little flower, interesting. You know, I started out wanting to make this flower, sort of, but I ended up making this flower, and I'm glad I did, because this is a very dense, it's almost round. It's completely flower. There's very little negative space in this flower. And I really wanted more negative space. That's why I did just 6 petals. Maybe 8 would have been better, but as it turned out, and as they were used, I really like the openness of this flower. Kind of the airiness. There's air there in between the petals. And I like that. Now, the one thing about these beads, because I worked on black, the yellow isn't as yellow. It's not as bright, right? Because you can see the black kind of through the yellow because you slice the canes so thinly you can actually see what's underneath the slices. Now, that doesn't bother me at all. I like this. I didn't want something that was like bright yellow. And so I'm very pleased with the way these turned out. Now, if you wanted something that is a brighter, stronger yellow, then when you make the cane, you're going to take white and mix it in with the yellow. Okay, so it makes this clay more opaque so that you see less of the black underneath it. So the cane itself becomes more opaque. And that is one way to prevent the darkening that has happened here because of the black underneath. As I said, I prefer it this way. I like it. I prefer it less sort of bright yellow. Some of these aren't exactly round, are they? Well, I did my best. I did my best. And I have daisies for a long time. Yeah, I do. And I will make more of these. I really do like them. Okay, well, that is it for today's little tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, please like, please subscribe, and click notifications, because sometimes I launch a surprise show and tell or something like that. So if you want to know when that happens, then just click the notifications. And I think that's it. That's it for me. It's springtime. It's time for flowers and leaves. And that's what this little class was. So thanks for watching. I'm Donna Kato, and I am signing off. Bye.